What's up? So, I was going to talk about something else, and I had already had it recorded and was ready to have that be uploaded. But then something happened over the weekend that I went, okay, I think now we need to talk about this. Um, I the words dystopian society become more and more apparent as we progress through more and more different types of venues. And when you have a scenario where you're trying to increase something, you need to understand what is causing a decrease in the beginning before you can actually do an increase. And then you have those that are out of touch with the rest of us. And enough cryptic talk. Japan is set in 2026 to institute a single tax to where if you are single and childless, you are going to pay more in taxes because you are not helping push the economy and um, they're having low birth rates and stuff. And I'm going, well, let's think about this for a moment. If you're having people not come together to make children organically, having them come together to make children financially is supposed to make things better? And how exactly is that supposed to make things better? Now, I'll give Japan credit on a lot of things because they do have a lot of respect factors that get thrown around and get used very well that we don't have here in Western society. And trying to tell people, well, we're going to make you pay more money because you're not putting in more children. How exactly do you think that's going to work? Then let's go ahead and analyze how good of a life that child that was forced together by financial status is supposed to help them out. Because let's say, for instance, you have someone who is working their ass off 50 hours a week. They just don't have time to do anything else. So they don't have time to go and date and find other people to talk to and get to know and want to be with, and then realize that they are in a financially stable situation that they can afford to bring a child into the world with that will have an actual better fulfilling life than they did. And you're going to tell that person that hasn't been making enough that they're going to make even less because they can't afford to take care of a child. So now they're going to make even less. So if you're wanting them to keep status quo of where they were, they need to have a kid that they can't afford to take care of? How disillusioned are you? Like I'm serious. At what point do you realize that this level of income and this level of work ethic and this level of work hours doesn't equate to this level of economy production that you're going, okay, well, now you're going to be here, and if you want to get back to here, you better have a kid. Well, I'm here, not here, so I can't make a kid and have that kid be in a position that was better when I started. So I'm going to be here and in less of a position to have one, and that's supposed to fix it. What the hell is wrong with you? Are, I'm dead serious. What are you talking about? How is this going to fix that situation? Back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s was probably your prime time to build the infrastructure, which is why here in the Western society, we actually had the Industrial Revolution. It's where they're going, make all this stuff for commerce. And it worked. But that was also the same time that those companies that were operating in small areas that were able to distribute things in other areas. And you had places like St. Louis that were just flourishing because they used the river to transport things to another location. Even Detroit boomed because it had a lot of its things sent through the river. And so you had these mass quantities that could be shipped in a place that wasn't really overflowing with traffic and horses and buggies and cars and all that other kind of shit. Because it's not like people are going, we're having swim parties in the river, let's go. And you had to watch out for barges. That's not how it was working. So they had booms, but then the the Industrial Revolution kind of happened and made all that stuff to where it was different to transport, and it was easier to transport, and it was faster sometimes, and you could do it more often. You didn't have to wait until that barge was full. You just had to wait till the truck was full and you sent it on its way. So now you have a situation where people aren't making enough. Those days you used to be able to survive on a one income home. So you could have a split between it. And it wasn't always men that worked and always women that stayed home. A good friend of mine throughout my childhood until he moved away and went and did his own family thing. His parents lived down the street. Dad stayed at home. Mom worked. She had the better paying job. Everybody was fine. And they could do it. But now it's to the point to where prices are so high, income is so low, jobs are starting to be automated by almost every damn thing on the planet. So you have all these companies that are putting more and more into how do we save more and more. Well, you can only automate so much depending on the field. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are talking about AIs getting rid of a lot of graphic artists and stuff. And for the most part, that is true. However, it is real easy to tell the difference between human artwork and AI artwork. And a lot of the times, I was going to say sometimes, but no, a lot of the times, AI artwork gets that shit wrong. And you'll have like 7 fingers on a hand, or one hand that's going inside of an arm, or for whatever reason, you got an ear in the middle of your forehead or something. So it's not perfect. And it'll just be over flush, and then everyone's going to get tired of it, and then it'll disappear again. I find it to be much in the same category as virtual reality from the 90s. It'll be cool, and it'll flourish for a little bit, and then it'll just bomb out because people are going to get tired of it, especially us attention deprived assholes over here in the Western culture. That's just all there is to it. You're not going to keep our attention with the same thing for long. And to have a scenario where you keep taxing those that are already taxed to the limit, you can't I had said this to myself a while ago. By a while ago, I mean like about it within the last month. What I think every group of individuals needs on like about a 5-year rotation, because after 5 years, most of them are going to become disillusioned, and then you're going to have to get rid of them and go to somebody else unless they can still keep the same mindset. And some people I think could, but some couldn't. And what I'm saying is every like cabinet or every group of executives in a company needs at least one, if not two, poor people. Because you don't have anyone in those groups that understands or represents those that are actually the working force. And most of those in those specific categories and committees, if you will, either started off a few levels above the rest and then went up, or were just going, well, essentially my name's on the front door, so I take over next. That's just how it works. But you never had to struggle for anything. And when you don't have to struggle for anything, you become disillusioned as far as what the hell else the rest of the world does. So the 1% may hold 99% of the wealth, but the 1% that holds 99% of the wealth is built by 99% of the world. Because you have so many people that are required to run the bottom line of your company, of your industry. And if you put money back into them, then everything rises and everything kind of stays the same. But the gap between the haves and the have-nots has been progressively getting larger. And that's why, you know, you have a lot of these reality TV shows, and you have a lot of these people that are sitting there going, are you tired of not having money? Let me tell you what you need to do. And we've all seen those commercials of that asshole in his garage, and he goes, I just bought a brand new Lamborghini. But you know what I'm really proud of? All these books. No, you're not. I bet you haven't read 10% of the books on that shelf. Because you're just going, that's something poor people do for entertainment. I can fly somewhere and have a nice little meal in an Italian restaurant and be home before the sun sets on that side of the planet. You're disillusioned. You have no idea what's happening on the other end. And it's almost like back in the 20s where you had snake oil, where it was mostly just, here's a shit ton of drugs to just help you forget about everything, and now you're feeling better. Well, yeah, because your head's all rocked out, but that doesn't mean that your stomach's doing any better, or your lungs are any better, or that spot on your foot is getting any better. You're just out of your tits, drugged out, and you're going, hey, this is fine. It's right on those levels again, and it I can't understand how we have become okay with being so disillusioned on this. And I understand that there's another end to it. I do, because I've seen it firsthand. If you have someone who, let's say, is at least the upper middle class, if not the lower upper class, and they are told by their boss that we need to find a way to keep profits going. So that's why they lay people off. That's why layoffs happen. So you're decreasing your productivity and thinking that quantity goes over, or quality supersedes quantity. Well, if you're a car manufacturer and you were making a shit ton of money and you get rid of a bunch of people, which means you make less cars. You make less cars, so you have to put the price tag up higher. Well, if you just got rid of 15,000 people, that's 15,000 less that are able to sit there and contribute to society and contribute to the economy that you just got rid of. So those were potential incomes that you got rid of. So another company has to take them on. And that's the mentality, rather than, well, maybe I should make less so they can make more, so that they can spend more, and that we can make more, because then more people will be buying cars. So I'm talking about, you need to have that sort of like poor person mentality that's thrown in there so that they can understand what is going on. Because if you make $2,000 a week versus $2,000 every 2 days, the person that makes $2,000 every 2 days is much less likely to go and spend extravagantly. They go, well, I've made all this, and well, in another 2 days, I'll make that again. So I'll just put that over to the side and I don't use it. So that's money that was given to them that is now removed from the economy. That money doesn't go back in. And that's what keeps happening is you keep having all these people go, I don't need what I made today, or I don't need what I made for this week or this 2 weeks or this month or this quarter. And so I'm going to go put it over here so it doesn't go back out. Meanwhile, those that make $2,000 every 2 weeks are having to spend $1,000 for a house and $400 for a car and $300 on most of the utilities in the house. So their $2,000 is gone the moment they get it, and then the next $2,000 they can put a little bit more food in there, maybe try and put some extra upgrades on the house when they can get time to get it done. But the thing that every company wants and every group of executives want is more money. When you go to colleges and you start taking a class in business, you know, the first thing they tell you, every year you need to be gaining a 5% increase, which is fine. But then that sticks with you and you're thinking every single year. So if you've been a company that has been working and operating for 50 years, you're making 250% more than you did the year you started. At what point is that enough? And this is the problem. Because now with Japan, they want you to be here and you're here. You're single, so now you're going to be here. So you don't have time, you don't have money, you don't have resources, you don't have anything needed to put into having a child. So now, in order to get back to here, you have to get a second job. So you have even less time to find someone and talk to someone and go to social situations. Oh, right. Social situations don't really happen anymore because we're all on our goddamn phones. We're too busy endlessly scrolling through shit, trying to find something that entertains us for a few seconds, and then we move on to the next thing. The fact that most of your social situations have died and left, that's why you don't have anything else going on. That's why your economy's in the toilet. That's why you have all of these scenarios and these situations where you have these people that are just going, I'm happy right here. And if you want to take it down one more level, if you start paying attention to a lot of these, hey ladies, are you tired of blah, 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 blah? And what that becomes is a perpetual motion machine of, as long as he's making you happy, stay with him. The moment you are unhappy, you're okay to leave. So wedding vows don't mean a damn thing anymore. For better or for worse. For richer or poorer. Nope. Because what do you have a lot of women saying? Get your bag, girl. And if he doesn't make at least $500,000 a year, he's not good enough for me. So you're looking for like upper level executive of a company. All right. Good luck finding one that isn't already married or doesn't already have a mistress or three. I mean, you're not going to find someone who's dedicated to you. You might get a sugar daddy. And at that point, what you're really getting is, oh, so that's what you charge per hour? They have a term for that. I wonder what it is. Oh, right. The oldest profession in the world. word you don't want to use because it has a negative connotation, because you'll turn it into content creator. So when I hear about all these nations and all their leaders talking about how they're going to fix things, for who? Because enough of you are so far disillusioned and so far out of touch with the reality of the rest of the world. You have no idea that it's going to take a sacrifice on your end to fix it. But again, I've heard firsthand, if we need to increase profits, easiest way is to start letting people go. And then that's a temporary fix. It's a Band-Aid. But you're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound made by a 50 caliber gun. Sure, it'll slow it down a little, but it doesn't fix it. You need to be able to fix it. If you can't fix it, you're not solving anything. You're just taking care of it for essentially that year and maybe the next. And then your 5% increase comes around again, and how do we get back up there? What happened? Well, you make too much goddamn money that doesn't go back into the economy, which means nobody's buying your stuff, because if it doesn't go into the economy, nobody can afford your things. And then you have things like shrinkflation, which any company that tells you that there's no such thing as shrinkflation and they have not taken part of it, they are a liar, because they absolutely have. And if you've paid attention at all just this year, you can see it. It's evident. The biggest evidence for it, go walk down the chip aisle. Go look at all the family size or the party size bags. Those are how big the regular bags used to be. And your family size, party size is pretty much what you find at Costco. And the family size, party size at Costco is a way better deal than anywhere else. Period. Because I can remember just last year opening a bag of chips. I could go like this with my hand and I'm not hitting both sides of the bag. I can go like this, spread it out, not just flat, but kind of, and I can hit every part of the bag. Never used to be able to do that before, ever, for any reason, ever. I can now. I can pick that whole thing up just like this with my hand on the inside of the bag, on the standard size $5 bags. And for anyone that says that they need to funnel into a company more, let me ask you a question. If the U.S. federal minimum wage is less than $8 and you can't even work for 1 hour and go somewhere and get something to eat, and I'm not talking about you can't go to Taco Bell and get a single taco. Well, sure you can. But if you are like me, how many of you remember when Taco Bell tacos were 79 cents each? Just the standard softer, crunchy tacos, 79 cents each. Anyone want to run a guess of what they are now? About $3. And that's why you have a lot of these fast food places saying now hiring. Well, the kids of today have learned, just through sheer everything, that, yeah, they could go there and get a job, but they're not going to make much money. They're not. They're not going to make much money. And I saw something a couple of weeks ago to where people were talking about how McDonald's is saying that they're no longer as profitable as they used to be, and people are going, because you used to be the bastion for poor people, and then you started to become just another asshole with corporate greed. And I still say the biggest factor in all of this is Forbes. Being put on the Forbes list of the most profitable companies, or the ones that are worth the most, or the billionaires that are worth almost trillions and shit. If that went away and we stopped tracking it, I think a lot of this starts to slow down, because someone with their infinite ego and being out of touch with what the hell's going on will sit in a position to where, let's say, they're number 30 in the top 30 or the top 100, and they've been number 30 for a few years. They're going to get mad because they haven't gone into the 20s. They want to get to above 25. So how do they do that? Stop giving money to people that are making what they're making. And now that goes into the company, so then he can give himself a raise. Now he moves up the ladder. If you had those poor people in there, they're going to go, who cares? Why do you care? How is that going to help long term? Stop thinking short term. Take a pay cut. Watch what happens within these 5 years. You're not going to go into the red. You're not. As long as... So, let's still use McDonald's, for example. If you went and okay, hold on. Let's see here. I wasn't thinking about McDonald's CEO salary. Chris Kempinski makes $19.2 million as of 2023. His total compensation in 2020 was $10.8 million, which included a base salary of $963,500. So obviously there's incentives in there. That pushed it up. And then this says he got a raise last year. He was paid a base salary of 1.4 and received just over $4 million in incentive compensation. So if you take that 4 mil, because you've obviously made a shit ton since 2020, so you don't really need more to operate your daily life, even your life on an annual basis. You don't need more. You just want more. But the bottom line needs more. Imagine what would happen, Mr. Kempinski, if all of a sudden everybody at the top took their incentives and threw it down at the bottom, and then you could afford to drop the prices, because now you're going to have shit wrapped around the building that people are just waiting to get in there. You're going to have way more people coming in, and you're going to get that money back, and you're going to keep that money. So rather than like a 5% increase every freaking year, you're going to have maybe 1 to 2, and that's okay, because the top doesn't need it. And as long as you keep having the supply and the demand taken care of, you start creating a pinch point that other CEOs are going to be going, well, no one's coming here. Well, why aren't they coming here? McDonald's has like 85-cent regular ass hamburgers again. And they basically just keep upcharging based off of how many patties they have or how thick the patties get. So your regular old hamburger, not cheeseburger, regular hamburger is like 85 cents. Then your cheeseburger is like $1. So people go, all right, it's 15 cents for a piece of cheese. We'll just get the cheeseburger. So your 85-cent hamburger now becomes a staple. And people are going, well, hell, I can make minimum wage and I can eat McDonald's and still have food because bread is 3 times more than the sandwich. But I can just get the sandwich now and I can be full now. And that's what I need during the workday. So now people are thinking I have all this extra money because I was able to eat cheap at work and now I'm okay. So now you take less from the top, but you're pushing quality, not quality down, because I'm talking about like prices. You push prices down so you do more quantity overall in business. So now you're going to probably need to make a few more McDonald's in some areas because all of them are chock full. Well, then you have Burger King and you have Taco Bell and you have KFC and you have all these other companies that are sitting there looking and trying to go, well, what the hell did they do? Why is no one coming here? So because you dropped your prices and caused everybody to flock to you, you're going to make the others have to do the same thing. Because this is where I had said a while ago, if you just take some off the top and you give it more to the bottom, you give them more freedom to do things. If people don't have freedom to do things, then you start putting that divide line in what's a necessity and what is a luxury. And I thought 6 years ago we learned that we learned where the essential was and where the essential wasn't. Well, the essential workers didn't get paid more. They didn't get compensated more because 80% of the non-essential workers were thrown at home and still paid because their company wasn't essential. So there's your baseline for everything and your luxury for everything. Well, luxuries cost money, god damn it. And if you're not going to sit there and give people money to actually go and spend on these things, then your company deserves to fail. Or you know you have such a limited niche market that I drive by a spot every now and again in Maplewood where there is a Porsche dealer on one side and a BMW dealer on the other. I have never once seen anybody in the parking lots looking around. The parking lots are always full. And it's in a spot of town where I'm going, who are you trying to cater to? Like, Maplewood's not exactly a spot that is very prolific when it comes to the people that live there. And sure, almost every spot, almost every city and whatnot has a section where you have people that are able to afford that. But would you want it in that neighborhood? Would you want it near that neighborhood? Because let's say, for example, you had a city that was built like Detroit. Starts at a center and just kind of goes out in a wagon wheel. That's why you have terms like 8 Mile. And that's what we're all familiar with. There's also 1 mile from the city center, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. I think all the way up to like 16. I don't know, it's been a minute. So you have all these, Jesus. If you had the first, let's say the first 3 miles was the richest people in the area, the richest. And then let's say there is 16. So you have the first three are the richest. And then from 4 to 16, it gets progressively more poor as you go farther out. I know that's not the way, but bear with me on this. So you have, here, should we do it this way? So you have the city center, 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile. We'll do this one. And then 4 mile is sort of the midway point. Near 5, 6, 7, 8. I know it looks terrible. Whatever. So then what you have, shit, where'd it go? Okay, there it is. You have all these roads. Whoops. You have all these roads. That extend inward. Much like a spider web. Or much like a wagon wheel. And so you're going to have trucks that bring stuff in from various locations to make sure that they get to the distribution spots. But if you see all of these things that go by you get in farther rather than only stop here, when you start seeing these bring in the good shit, and these just bring in the passable shit, how long before you start trying to take those trucks out? Basically goes back to being the Fast and the Furious. You know, you're seeing all these good things go past you, and you're like, well, we can't ever do those. I mean, it really comes down to, and I've said it before, and I will say it forever. You can't take money from those that have no money and then expect the economy to still work. It comes down to you are going to have to actually sit there and take money from those that have it in order to put it back into the economy. And I don't know how that happens. But I do know that if the McDonald's CEO can earn between $4 and $10 million extra on top of their salary of 963,000 or 1.4 million, how far down do bonuses like that go before people can earn their entire annual salary and more at the end of the year? If you make $60,000 a year, your Christmas bonus might be $500-$600. It might be a couple grand, but it's not going to be $240,000. It's not going to be $1 million. So why aren't your incentives as CEO a percentage less than your annual take home? Because someone's offering you money to do something wrong. And we're looking at the beginning of the teeth marks where it starts really biting people hard. And another strong, hard depression is coming soon. There's no other way to flip it, because if you were to take a CEO of a company, and let's still use McDonald's as an example, and you tell him you can still keep your 1.4, but you will not be getting any incentives. None. Not until we fix our traffic. And every single company that operates like this, there's plenty of people that have the mindset of, I will defend it for this one specific reason, and that one specific reason is all the more I need to still keep going. I can't tell you how many people say, oh, drinks at McDonald's just hit harder. Go to the gas station. It's so much better. And what if there was such a riotous response that people said, we're not going to go to any McDonald's ever again until we can get ice cream anytime. Pretty sure that contract with that ice cream company that McDonald's has to just keep their machines being shitty and barely ever working would dwindle pretty quickly. But since it's just one item, people just go, and they're able to keep it going. If ever you needed to realize that there's corruption in the system, just McDonald's ice cream alone, it should tell you. And I find it funny if 60% of people holy crap, sorry. If 60% of people were to actually have a conviction and stand by it, most companies would be shaking in their boots. Because there's strength in numbers, we just don't give a shit because we're comfortable. And as long as we're comfortable, we're not going to change anything. Nothing's going to get fixed. Nothing's going to become better. Because we're comfortable, we'll make up an excuse. People will pay upwards of what? I'd say almost $10 to go get their Starbucks fix. I think if you started having Starbucks cost about $10 per cup, people might start waking up. Some definitely will. They're going, I'm not paying that much for a fucking cup of coffee. Are you out of your goddamn mind? But people have these routines that make them feel important, that make them feel special, which is why you have those idiots that take pictures of their food. Going, okay, someone else made this food and you're about to eat it. You didn't make it, so why are you? That's like going, here's my French fries. No one cares. No one cares. Now, I have seen some videos where there have been like vegetarians eating hot wings for the first time. And there's this really cute girl, has a hot wing. And she's got that bad boy. She goes, so do I dip it in ranch or sauce or something? They go, just take a bite first. Oh, she went right back in on it. And the caption at the end said, "Safe to say, she'll be back." And that kind of goes along the same lines. Once you have something a certain way, and then you change it, sometimes for the better, you're gonna make sort of a life changing experience. And I think it was David Price, CEO that gave up. Oh wait. Dan Price of Gravity Payments back in 2015 said everybody makes 70,000, including himself. And there were CEOs that said, "There's no way. There's no way." And it worked. It worked. He goes, there was so little birth rates in the company. There was so little productivity, and then he instituted a 4-day work week to give people more time to go do something else. And they came back and they were even more motivated to get things done because they're not overworked. When you're overworked and underpaid, you don't give a damn. You're like, how many times have you seen boss makes $1, I make a dime, that's why I poop on company time? I mean, you make less than a dime if the boss makes $1, but principle still stays. It's more like boss makes $100 and you make a penny. And that's why I don't give a damn about him or this company's money. But it goes to show that the greed at the top is the problem. Because if you put all the money up top, and in concept, trickle-down economics should work, but then you institute greed and then rewarding that greed, then trickle becomes barely functional. And we're well beyond that now. Like the wells have pretty much run dry. And you're just giving people a dropper of something every now and again when you feel fit or you even remember. And if we collectively as people stood up to this turns around faster. But we don't, because we're comfortable. And that's the second biggest factor is why everything's failing. Because how is this better? How are we making things better? How are we becoming better if we're not learning that what the world needs is more money? Not what the 1% needs is more climbing up by a certain number on some dumbass list. Well, I've made my peace with a lot of companies that treat their people like shit and don't do anything to help out, and it's all just corporate greed and gimme. And if I help you make $1 million and you don't even give me like a $10,000 incentive, why would I do that? Oh, because it's just my job. Okay, well, I'll just work on making you a $10,000 deal, and I'll just keep my job. Because if I'm not going to get more back, why should I put more in? That's just like saying there's give and take on both sides of the relationship. Well, if one side gives and one side takes, and the other side that takes never gives, that relationship will eventually fall. Most of them will. Some people still kind of enjoy that dynamic, but for the most part, that relationship fails. So how does this make anything better? How are we as a society becoming better? How is we as a planet becoming better if we keep giving to the top and going, When is someone going to cut a hole in this bitch so that I can actually have something come down to me? I don't know. And it's thoughts like this that keep me up at night and that prevent me from getting a decent amount of sleep. And yeah, because I can see that it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to get a lot worse. Yep. Curious to know what you think if you made it this far. What was that dude's name? Whatever. Changed my mind. Tell me that what I said today was wrong. Changed my mind.